Is there a greater love than the bond between parent and child? Children are desperate to please their parents, and parents only want what's best for their children. Unfortunately, sometimes the love we have for our children can be expressed in ways that does more damage than good. There's no one book you can read that deals with the specific needs of your child. So what we're really left with is parenting by trial and error. What works for one child may not be okay for another, and anyone with more than 2 children will know this. But are we pushing them into a mold, or are we really activating the power of the I am in our children? As parents, we can sometimes try and push kids into the same mold that we came from, instead of appreciating that he or she is exactly the person they're supposed to be. We happen to be temporary custodians of a completely trusting, vulnerable being who relies on us to teach them about the world until they are capable of navigating it themselves. In that sense, they never actually belong to us despite the fact we made them. But it is our responsibility to try and give them the best possible start in life. It's never perfect, but then perfection is an imposter. But what it does require is an understanding of this unique being's personality traits. Take for instance the father who was overjoyed to have a son with whom he envisaged going fishing and shooting and to become strong, both physically and mentally, in order to create someone quite similar to himself. Just like his father was before him. As the years roll by, it becomes apparent that the boy actually enjoys a more creative, gentle aspects of life. He is intelligent, thoughtful, inquisitive and tactile, and just not quite tough enough to fit an alpha male mold. So the blinkered guidance of loving, kind parents have, quite unconsciously, managed to raise their healthy boy into a nervous, uncomfortable child. However, if that same child was able to watch his father enjoy those activities, there would be a much greater chance that he'd join in with some occasionally. In his own time and by his own choosing. As Albert Einstein famously said, everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Or perhaps it's the loving, overprotective parent who insists the child is removed from any potential harm whatsoever. The house is sterilized to the standards of an operating theatre. They are no longer allowed to play with little Johnny next door because he's mean with his toys and doesn't share. So then we have a child whose immune system offers less resistance and needs more practice developing their emotional coping strategies when dealing with tricky personalities. To become strong, confident adults, we must allow them to be explorative, playful children first. If we can offer them as many rich and varied environments as possible as they grow, they will eventually be inspired by something or someone that makes them happy. Freedom to explore is free will personified. Continuous negative affirmations from childhood can profoundly influence their belief systems later on in life. So just imagine what can be achieved if we're all told from an early age just how incredibly talented, kind and clever we are, no matter what our interests may be. Imagine if schools actually helped our children identify their strengths by exploring their talents from a young age and growing their skills over the 12 years, instead of pushing them all up the same predetermined path. Of course, I'm not writing this in the same room as a 3-year-old who is pounding their fists on the floor and yelling. But in quieter moments, telling a child how wonderful they are generally creates even more lovely behaviour. They want to please you. Of course, continually telling a child they are clumsy, naughty or rude does the same. It creates more of the same behaviour. So if we start focusing on their positive attributes, so will the child. Freedom of expression and choice does not mean saying yes to everything. because that inevitably means various types of screens, from flashy buzzy things and the latest craze in child pacification. Children, despite their pleas, do not really need things because they already have wonderful imaginations. So, on the contrary, it just means saying no to most things that are reactive instead of proactive. It makes those moments of screen time way more of a treat, and they are more likely to watch stuff with you. Children may object to being told no, but their subconscious minds loves the boundaries we give them. It makes them feel safe. And if children are allowed to flourish unhindered within those boundaries, they really have the ability to inspire. They very well might inadvertently become the teacher who turns us into the people we aspire to be. They can remind us that we don't actually need a reason to be happy, and that we should always be occupied however frivolous the activity may seem. And we are also reminded that we should insist that our demands and our true desires are met. Above all, we witness and reacquaint ourselves with the humbling power of pure, unadulterated, unconditional love. We can then relate to our own inner child as we are exposed to the pure beings we once were. If we can allow love to provide the basis of all of our interactions in life, it diffuses the judgmental thoughts of the ego, and it allows and encourages those you interact with to also behave with more authenticity. Their defenses will also tend to drop. Love is the most powerful emotion that supersedes all others in that respect. We are at our happiest and most fulfilled when we are experiencing it. Love is respect. It's a healer, it's a forgiver and a diffuser of hate and anger, and provides the basis of all compassion in the world. In a dying moment, the last words shared are very likely to include statements of love. The lesson for us all is to make sure we feel it not only for ourselves, but for our fellow man, and make decisions based upon it in everything that we do. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." A wonderful story emerged from an underground train in Vancouver when a man who was obviously highly distressed and verbally abusive was appearing to become a threat to his fellow commuters. He wasn't small, and no one dared to get eye contact with him. Most recoiled in fear, but one elderly lady sitting very close by decided to gently raise her hand to hold his. He took it, and within seconds the situation had completely de-escalated. He was instantly calmed, reassured after having received the love from the least likely person one would assume could defuse the situation. He left the train saying, "Thanks, Grandma." One little elderly lady showed an entire train carriage how anger and aggression, which we know stems from fear, can be defeated with a little love. Now please be assured that this is not an advertisement suggesting you should now find and approach highly aggressive people and hold their hands. Please don't. This is a wonderful true story of an old lady who acted instinctively. It came from a place of love, and she just knew what to do from that place. You cannot force compassion, but allow it to guide you instead, and watch how it inspires you to act in the right place at the right time. There are no rules for love. It works in mysterious ways, and at times it can prompt acts that completely defies logic. You cannot buy it, restrict it, prevent it, or request it. It doesn't recognize religion, politics, or race, and will strike indiscriminately and without warning. Marriage is simply a lawful contractual document, and sex is a physical act. Both can be seen as declarations and will contribute to love, but do not in themselves manifest it. Disney's heroes sing about it. Hollywood blockbusters have it running through their core, and sonnets and poetry would be lost without it. As would we. It's in our very essence, our default emotion, and it's the power source that guides us if we allow it to.